Now, in my opinion, and I know this might be controversial, the Alpha Legion is a Loyalist Legion that just so happens to be comprised mostly of traitors.
Why you boring me? I'm right.
Okay, now, hear me out. The reason that is because at the end of The End and the Death, we get the confirmation that the code word for Alpha Legion to fight alongside the Emperor against Horus, Xenophon, was meant to be triggered for the Alpha Legion sleepers still under Terra. This is proof positive that the Alpha Legion in the end was loyal. They decided to be loyal at the end, even though they could have gone and did sort of flip-flop either way throughout the heresy. This was the idea of the twins and their command. But according to Solomon Akura, that doesn't matter anymore. He specifically says this in one of his tweets before Hero Master was released, saying, this is the Alpha Legion in the 41st millennium. It's not the Alpha Legion of the heresy. But again, I believe the Legion at its core is meant to be loyal, and should still be more or less considered as such, even though it's full of mostly traitors. One way we can see this comes from a group that refer to themselves as the quote-unquote Emperor's Test. These are Alpha Legion who fight against the Imperium, specifically in order to weed out the weakest, most easily eliminated elements. Funnily enough, this is actually an ideology that exists within the Inquisition. It's called Istvanianism, and this faction really comes into center stage in the book Sons of the Hydra by Rob Sanders. In it, a loyalist Alpha Legionnaire named Occam leads his small warband called the Redacted in betraying the much larger group they were part of, called the Sons of the Hydra, the ones who had eliminated no less than 4 Ultramarine successor chapters in and around the Maelstrom. Now, Occam is a natural-born Alpha Legionnaire from the Heresy era, but the rest of his warband are not. They're other Marines who have pledged for the Alpha Legion and wear their colors. It's why some people actually don't like the book and say they don't feel like real Alpha Legionnaires, they just feel like cosplayers, they just feel kind of clever on a precursory level. It's one of the more controversial Alpha Legion books, a lot of people don't like it, but it has a lot of interesting stuff for the Alpha Legion, namely the fact that the big main quest of the book is that Occam and his warband end up working with a Necron Chronomancer who tells them that he knows where their Primarch Omegon really is. Now, while it does turn out that this supposed Omegon is actually a shard of the Deceiver, Occam and his warband go on a wild goose chase to try and get to it, and when they get to it near the galactic core, it's leading a bunch of Alpha Legionaries in making some sort of pylon devices. When Occam talks to the quote-unquote Omegon, he begs it to help reunite the Legion, give the Sons some purpose, show us the way. And of course a firefight ensues, the Shard of the Deceiver is destroyed, yada yada. But this shows that there is, in the present day, a very strong desire within many in the Legion to reunite with their lost Primarch or just get back together in some way. The group wants to reunite. The Alpha Legion wants to get back together. We can see this with the Ghost Legion as well, even though they reject the legacy of Alpharius Omegon. And on the topic of Occam, one thing I want to mention to him, which also comes up with some of those Alpha Legionaries in Hero Master, is their relationship to the Emperor. In Hero Master, there is one small group who actually wear barbed wire on the inside of their helmets as a way to show penance for having betrayed the Emperor's vision. But yet they still fight against the Imperium in some way. That's just really weird. Like, dude, you know you can just go and be a loyalist, right? You can just be loyalists. Other people in the Legion are doing it. You can too if you feel that bad about it. And Occam is not just a loyalist, he is a worshipper. He fully believes in the divinity of the Emperor and has a small chapel aboard his ship, which was supposed to be staffed with a cardinal that he and his group had kidnapped, but who did self-terminate, let's put it in YouTube-friendly terms. Though a Calidus assassin friend of his pretends to be that cardinal, and he does talk with this quote-unquote cardinal, sort of wanting his ideas challenged, wanting to feel justified, wanting to know he's on the right path, because he does worship the Emperor, and I think that's why he feels justified in doing what he's doing, to make sure that the Emperor's finest really are the finest. This, oddly enough, runs directly counter to the person he was working under, the Hero Master Quetzal Carthage, the leader of the Sons of Hydra, which the Redacted are a part of. he has a burning hatred for the Ultramarines because he was apparently at Escador when Guilliman supposedly killed Omegon. No, he did not. Omegon is still alive. I'm never gonna back down on that. And set about destroying Guilliman's legacy one successor chapter at a time. See, Quetzal Carthage is what I like to call the Old Alpha Legion because he is described by Occam as having lost his way, in an excerpt, if you'll allow me. As the artificial atmosphere was vented through the gun decks, taking thousands of surf crew members with it, Occam paced the command deck, waiting for Carthage's response. The Angel Bane was not wrong. The Redacted were made up of renegades who had joined the ranks of the Alpha Legion rather than those who bore the genetic heritage of the last Primarch. What they lacked in blood, they shared in the pervasivity of the Legion's operational aspirations and myriad dark objectives. Occam wouldn't have it any other way. While the Redacted fought with the zeal of converts, attempting to honor and harness some of the professional potency of the Legion's past, Carthage's Sons of the Hydra were, by and large, legionary butchers. Pirates, madmen, warp-tainted altars. Quetzal Carthage was indeed the master of harrows. By joining disparate Alpha Legion warbands under his banner and throwing them into coordinated actions, he had succeeded in wiping out the successor sons of Guilliman on the rimworld borders of the Maelstrom and earned the title Angel Bane. While the Angel Bane had been the puppet of his pathological hatred, Occam was driven by a harsh and uncompromising love for his emperor. The priests of the ecclesiarchy might have thought themselves austere, and the agents of the Inquisition unflinching in their prosecution of his will, but none had the adamantine faith required to embrace the traitor and carry out the Emperor's work from within the enemy lines. To be the true check and balance, to fan the flames of heresy and temper the resolve of a brittle empire. Such pursuits brought Occam into company with renegades like Quetzal Carthage. Carthage was both madman and genius. He was too dangerous for his bitter cause to be either ignored or fully embraced. Like many in the fragmented Legion, Carthage had long lost his way. An ancient lie twisted to the harshest of truths. The Archlord had reputedly been present upon cursed Escador, the day the Twin Primarch fell. While Occam doubted this was true, Carthage lived for the suffering of Guilliman's sons and devoted his considerable talents to their extermination, chapter by chapter. The Angel Bane favored the old ways, reproducing in his own rancid fashion a ghostly shadow of the Alpha Legion's infamous harrowings. The culmination of many months of planning and preparation, Carthage and his gathered Alpha Legion warbands launched mass lightning attacks of synchronized force and unstoppable variety. Planetary assaults were complemented by piratical deceptions. Cultist mobs rose up amongst the populations of loyal Imperial worlds, while assassins stalked planetary leaders. Psycho-indoctrination and orbital bombardments spelled doom in their different ways, while Xenos mercenaries and demonic allies were unleashed upon the Emperor's servants. While the Tyrant of Badab had announced his hatred of the Imperium through a bombastic war that had dominated the core world sectors, the Angel Bane had been quietly snuffing out Adeptus Astartes' homeworlds on the other side of the warp storm. In doing so, Quetzal Carthage satisfied his cruel obsession, and the Sons of the Hydra contributed to the Legion's murky objective of further destabilizing the tottering Imperium. The insurrectionists, monsters, and piratical marauders, placing themselves under the Master of Harrow's command, meanwhile, prospered, pilfering victim chapters of their finest plate, much-needed Adeptus Astartes weaponry, and fleet assets. Occam knew not how many of the Ultramarine successors Quetzal Carthage had truly ended. The demise of the Crimson Consuls on Carcharis had been a crude kind of merciless artistry, and the Redacted had taken part in the harrowing actions that had destroyed both the Vindicators and the Nova Legion. Still, Occam did not rate the Chaos Lord. While he was a ruthless figurehead driven by an ancient legionary hatred, Carthage's strategies and those he had committed the Redacted to were not half as accomplished as the Angel Bane liked to think. Occam knew he could do better for his emperor, and that one day, he might. Okay, this video's really starting to get long, I'm sorry guys, but I'm gonna try and burn through the rest of this. This shows the push and the pull between those Loyalist Alpha Legion elements and the traitorous elements who have sort of betrayed the original purpose of the Legion. Hey, I'm just gonna say it, it's a Loyalist Legion full of traitors. Yeah, some of you guys might not want to hear it, but it's the truth. And this actually ends up with Occam killing Quetzal Carthage. I actually messed up his name so many times reading that excerpt. It's such a pain in the ass. I was like, Quetzal Cataract, fucking Quetzalcoatl. It just isn't happening. But yeah, out of those books that showcase the modern status of the Alpha Legion, Sons of the Hydra is the most overlooked one, but I think it gives so much insight. It's really honestly a shame. So what we know now, there are Alpha Legionaries who are loyal to the Emperor, view themselves as the Emperor's test. I think that's a very small group. Most of them are like Quetzal Carthage, who are now traitors, or the ones who work for Abaddon, or whoever, and are like mercenaries or pirates, or maybe are fighting for a cause. They're all just opposing the Imperium. That's the old Alpha Legion. And now there's the Ghost Legion, who's also opposing the Imperium, but doing so, I guess, in a more unified and cohesive way. But there is one more group. In the book Shroud of Night by Andy Clark, a book that a lot of people have been clamoring for a sequel for because it's really, really good, we meet a group of Heresy-era Alpha Legionnaires who have been stuck essentially in a warp storm ever since the end of the Heresy and only just get out now. They are the ones who first come into contact with Primaris Marines, who they are really intimidated by, but more than anything, they are only fighting for themselves. They don't really care about Chaos or the Long War. They don't really care about the Imperium. What gets them into the main story is an Emperor's Children Chaos Lord tells them, hey, there is a beacon. It's like a mini Astronomicon on this planet in Imperium Nihilus. I need you to go get it. Go bring it to me. And if you do, I'll give you guys a ship. You can be on your way. So they get on the planet. When they get there, there's Imperial Fists there. There's a lot of Sisters of Battle there. A Cornate fleet with Karn the Betrayers there. Saint Celestine is on the planet. It's completely bonkers. The Imperial Guardsmen are fighting all over the place. It's such a nuts battle. You really should read this book. It's just a lot of fun. And they are initially obviously opposed by the Sisters of Battle, but Saint Celestine, right near the end, before she's killed by Karn, is essentially informed by the Emperor that, hey, you should trust these Alpha Legionaries, let them get the beacon. And she essentially gives them like a thumbs up when they're going for it and holds off Karn the Betrayer while they get it and flee with it. They don't bring it back to the Slaaneshi Chaos Lord, they just keep flying off with it, and he goes to pursue them. That's why people are waiting for a sequel, because it's sort of left on a cliffhanger if they're gonna get caught or not. But the Emperor literally gave those guys the green light. Celestine basically nodded and gave them a thumbs up. They're not loyalists, but the Emperor approving of them I don't think means they can be considered traitors, especially since they screwed over the Emperor's children. I like to lump these guys in with something I refer to as the Omega Legion. That being Alpha Legionaries from the Heresy era like them who will side with Omegon when he eventually makes his return to the setting, which I do believe he will. In addition to this, we find in the book Bequin Pariah by Dan Abnett a Space Marine wandering around the setting in worn down armor who, by the end of the book, reveals his name to be Alfarius. He's seen fighting a member of the Emperor's children. He fights him off, not because he defeats him in battle, but because part of his helmet gets cut away and the Emperor's children is just shocked at what he sees underneath. The person he is protecting, Elizabeth Bequin, or a clone of her, says, hey, Eisenhorn sent you to watch over us, didn't he? Who are you? He turns and says, I am Alfarius, and then leaves. Many people believe this might be the real Omegon. Like, it could be that big or that important, because this series is one of the oldest and most important in all of Warhammer. So yeah, some people do credibly believe that. Personally, I'm not convinced, but I do think this could be a member of the Omega Legion. Furthermore, this theory is backed up by the fact that there's a good chance there are a bunch of Alpha Legionaries on Terra dormant under the palace, waiting for the right trigger word, Xenophon, to trigger loyalty to the Emperor. If Omegon can get to them and then get in contact with people like those Alpha Legionaries from Shroud of Night, their name escapes me at the moment, that would be a sizable force. There really would be something there. That would be the Omega Legion, a proper loyalist force. That, in my mind, would be the true continuation of the Heresy-era Alpha Legion, continuing on that old mission because the Alpha Legion was loyalist during the End in the Death Volume 1. Of course, we need to see what happens to those Alpha Legionaries in the End of the Death Volume 2, and if we ever get a sequel to Shroud of Night, we'll see. But let me know what you guys think. These four groups, the Alpha Legion, Ghost Legion, Emperor's Test, and Omega Legion, are all there and in play, and I think something will come of this. I really do. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys were part of the Alpha Legion, which group would you be a part of? Let me know in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video.